Okay, so I'm going to assume we're on, so I'll go ahead Good morning. I'm going to go ahead and call this session of the City of Issaquah Hearing Examiner to order. For the record, today is January 28th, 2020 at approximately 10 a.m. We have two items on the agenda today. Both are plats. The first is a preliminary plat, and the second will be a final plat. We're going to go ahead and start with the preliminary plat. And this is number PP 18-00002, a request for preliminary plat approval to subdivide a 21.94 acre property into 20 single-family residential lots with associated improvements as a cluster housing development at the east side of the intersection of Northwest Tallis Drive and Renton-Issaquah Road Southeast. My name is Andrew Reeves. I'm a hearing examiner with Sound Law Center, who the city has selected to hold certain land use application hearings like this one, and today it will be my role to collect evidence in the form of exhibits and testimony to determine whether this proposal complies with the city's comprehensive plan, zoning ordinances, critical areas ordinances, and the specific criteria for approval of a preliminary plat under Title 18 of the Issaquah Municipal Code. In addition, because this proposal does involve the subdivision of land, have to ensure that it complies with the State Subdivision Act, which is Chapter 5817 of the Revised Code of Washington. To that end, I received 19 exhibits in advance of today's hearing that I had an opportunity to review. These include a staff report prepared by city staff, the project plans themselves, a project narrative prepared by the applicant team, information on the environmental review that occurred under the State Environmental Policy Act, several reports and studies of a technical nature, including studies related to stormwater and traffic, among other things, a few written comments, public comments, not a whole lot, and then information on the notice that went out in relation to both the application and today's hearing. So I'm going to go ahead and admit those 19 exhibits into the record. Should anyone have additional exhibits they'd like admitted into the record, let me know when it's your opportunity to testify, and I'll address admitting additional exhibits at that time. Speaking about testimony, all testimony today will be under oath or affirmation. That's because were my decision ultimately to be appealed under the State's Land Use Petition Act, the audio recording or video recording in this instance from today's hearing, as well as the admitted exhibits, would serve as the foundation for any such appeal. Finally, the order that I believe we're going to follow is first staff is going to present an overview of the proposal. Then I will turn, and any recommendations that the city may have, then I'll turn it over to the applicant team to present any additional information they feel that myself and members of the public should be aware of. Finally, after that, should any members of the public desire or wish to testify, they'll have that opportunity. I note that we have an empty room at the moment, but if folks come in, they will have that chance, and if appropriate at the end, I will then turn it back for any kind of response from the applicant team and city staff. So I think that's it. We can go ahead and get started. I'd like to thank everyone for being here, and I'll begin by getting city staff sworn in. So do you swear or affirm to tell the truth in the testimony you give here today?
Yes, we do.
Thank you. And you are, for the record?
Valerie Porter.
Thank you, Ms. Porter. Please proceed. While you're figuring that out, did you want to make your PowerPoint an additional exhibit?
Sure.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and make that exhibit 20, and we'll make sure myself and the applicant team gets copies right here by the end of the day.
All right, so my name is Valerie Porter again, and I'm here to talk about the Tibbetts Crossing preliminary plat. So the project is located on the eastern side of Northwest Tallis Drive and Renton-Issaquah Road Southeast, also known as SR 900. The site can be found within the Tibbetts Creek Valley sub-area and is zoned single-family estate. The comprehensive plan designates the site as low-density residential, and the project is consistent with the comprehensive plan. Cluster housing standards are available to sites 2 acres and greater, and sites 5 acres or more are required to obtain a development agreement approved by the City Council. On December 19, 2016, the City Council approved a development agreement for this site. The applicant, Steve Bernstead Construction, is proposing to subdivide the 21.9-acre site into 20 single-family residential lots. 2 of the homes will be deed restricted for affordable housing per the development agreement. The development agreement states that the city will build the affordable homes, but the applicant has agreed to build the homes instead of the city. The scope of work will also include an internal road through the development, which will be privately owned and maintained. The road will connect to SR 900, meander through the site, and provide access to 4 lots on the east side of Tibbetts Creek. Access to the 4 lots will require a bridge crossing over Tibbetts Creek. The final bridge design has not yet been reviewed by staff, but will be examined in detail during the construction permit phase. Staff believes a bridge crossing is feasible at this location. The applicant is also proposing to construct a VUNERF, which is a road shared by vehicles and pedestrians, and will provide open space and pedestrian for recreational use. Public notification was distributed to the community as outlined in the Issaquah Municipal Code. A neighborhood meeting was held in November of 2018. A couple weeks later, a notice of application was sent to surrounding property owners. 3 comment letters were received. Staff provided comments in the staff report. 2 SEPA comment periods were held. Additional information was provided after the first comment period. And in early January, the city issued a mitigated determination of non-significance. Please see Exhibit 5 of the staff report for a copy of the determination and mitigation measures. Prior to this meeting, a public meeting notice was distributed to surrounding property owners and posted in the Issaquah Reporter. 1 comment was received after the notices were distributed. I have a hard copy here today. 1 was provided to the applicant already.
This is an additional comment, is that right?
Additional comment.
Came in after the staff.
Great, thank you. So I'll make this Exhibit 21.
As previously stated, a development agreement was established for the site. Therefore, the project is subject to the standards outlined in the Issaquah Municipal Code as well as the development agreement. It's important to keep in mind that the clustered housing standards take precedence. So for instance, with the clustering housing provision, minimum lot size is not applicable, and district standards apply to the entire site, not the individual lots. The project's compliance with district standards will be reviewed further with building permits. According to the development agreement, the project is vested to the land use ordinances, policies, and regulations that were in place at the time the agreement was established. Therefore, the project is vested to the critical area regulations prior to changes made on December 28, 2016. The project design is based off these requirements. There are 6 wetlands located on and within close vicinity of the project site. To clearly show the locations, this slide is only going to show 3 of the wetlands. Wetland A, which is located within close vicinity of the entrance. The existing road is located within the buffer area, as will the newly constructed road. The construction of lots 15 and 16, which are located towards the north of the site, they sit in between wetlands B and C. The lots will encroach into portions of the wetland buffers. To mitigate impacts for all 3 of these wetlands, the applicant is proposing buffer averaging and adding new buffer area, which is allowed by code. This slide shows the remaining 3 wetlands. Wetland D, which is located north on the adjacent parcel, has a buffer encroaching on the project site. Wetland E, which is located in the southeast side of the parcel, the proposed development will not have any impacts to this wetland. Impacts will be made to wetland F, which is located in the middle of the site, right next to Tibbetts Creek. The project is also proposing to use buffer averaging to offset impacts. In addition to the wetlands, the site contains 3 streams that are all Class 2 streams with salmonoid and have 100-foot buffers. Tibbetts Creek bisects the site from north to south. The proposed development will encroach into the stream buffer, but the applicant is proposing to add additional buffer in another location to offset the impacts. Both Stream A and B, which are located down here to the south, are tributaries to Tibbetts Creek. Very little impacts will be made to Stream A, and mitigation measures will include adding additional buffer. The project will not impact Stream B and will remain in its current state. The critical area report and plan set were sent out for third-party review. The third-party reviewer confirmed the applicant's delineation of wetland and stream boundaries, the wetland rating, and the wetland buffer width to the vested critical area code. Both city staff and the third-party consultant believe the proposed buffer alterations comply with city code and will not adversely impact the function and the value of the critical areas. The cluster housing standards requires a project to provide a minimum of 15% of the net site area as common usable open space. The net site area for this site, which excludes critical areas and roadways, is approximately 9.8 acres, which means that the applicant should provide 1.47 acres of common usable open space. This is identified in option 1. Staff believes this requirement creates a nexus of proportionality. Staff believes a more comparable requirement would be for the project to provide 15% of common usable open space for the land that will be developed. The applicant is proposing to construct only 4.41 acres of the site, which is close to half of the developable area. The rest of the buildable land will be placed in an easement to remain open space in perpetuity. Reducing the requirement allows more open space to remain undeveloped. Staff is recommending approval of option 2, which will require the applicant to provide 15% common usable open space for the area that will be developed and meets the intent of the development agreement. According to the Issaquah Municipal Code, common usable open space must include areas that are accessible for recreation. This includes trails, picnic areas, and other recreational uses. The project will designate 3 tracts for recreational uses. That's Tract B, which is surrounded by lots 1 through 13, Tract C, which is located close to the entrance of the site, and Tract D, which is right before the bridge crossing. Tract D will not only be used for recreation, but will also house a detention vault below. Together, the 3 tracts do not fulfill the 0.66 acre common usable open space requirement. To comply with the common usable open space requirement, the project will also construct a pedestrian trail, which is shown in yellow. The development agreement states that the applicant must construct a neighborhood trail and give the city a 20-foot wide relocatable recreational trail easement through the Homeowners Association-owned open space to serve the neighborhood. The trail easement must provide travel from the north and the south parcel boundaries, as well as the east-west boundaries, to eventually connect to the King County Cedar River Trail, which is located along the east property line. Instead of just giving the city an easement, the applicant has agreed to construct the east-west trail segment, which will be a 5-foot wide soft trail. The plans show a conceptual layout of the pedestrian trail, but the trail will be located in the critical area buffers. The final location will be worked out with the city staff and approved by city council prior to installation, and this is according to the development agreement. To offset impacts, the applicant is proposing to convert approximately 6,345 square feet of developable land into the buffer area. With the construction of the pedestrian trail, the applicant will be able to fulfill the neighborhood trail and the common usable open space requirement. So subdivisions are required to provide non-motorized walkways within a development to link to schools, common areas, open spaces, and public streets. The project is proposing to provide an internal road with a 5-foot wide sidewalk separated from travel lanes by a planter strip. A section of Road A can be seen in the lower left corner. The project is also proposing to install a bridge crossing over Tibbetts Creek, which will create a continuous sidewalk from SR 900 all the way to the back lots. The applicant is requesting a deviation from city street standards to create a VUNER, which is a circulation path used for shared It's a shared path used by pedestrians and vehicles. The request is an administrative decision, and the city has approved for a Vooner to be constructed here. The Vooner sits right here. As shown in the bottom section, the Vooner will have 2 travel lanes and on-street parallel parking. The project is required to install frontage improvements. Due to the critical areas adjacent to SR 900 and limited sidewalk north of the parcel, the city has also approved the applicant's request to only construct frontage improvements south of the entryway. Improvements will consist of curb, gutter, landscape strip, and a 5-foot wide sidewalk. Staff recommends approval of the Tibbetts Crossing preliminary plat, subject to the conditions outlined in the staff report.
Great, thank you, Ms. Porter. If we could go back a couple slides, I just wanted some clarification on, there you go. So the Woonerf is only in that internal area, is that my understanding?
That's correct.
Okay, so I recall staff had sort of one concern that was raised was the length of driveway and where people are going to park. Is the idea, just so I understand, that Wooner does provide primary access to the majority of the lots. Is that accurate?
Correct. Driveways will be off the Wooner, and then around the open space area, the applicant is proposing to provide at least 6 parking spaces, guest parking spaces.
Okay, so on the internal portion, there will be theoretically 6 parking spaces.
Yes, right.
There you go. And then one would assume be no parking in front of the homes where the Woonerf is, or you've defeated the whole point of having a Woonerf.
Right.
Okay, so staff has essentially said, yeah, we think this is fine, but you need to ensure you have enough parking within the subdivision, as well as enough parking, which I assume is 2 stalls per.
Yes.
Two spots per home.
Correct.
And the idea is between a garage and a driveway.
Correct.
That takes care of your 2 spots.
Correct.
Okay, making sure I understood that. I think this slide's fine, so we don't have to jump around on slides. But on critical areas, the reference you had to impacts to wetland F, which I believe is the bigger wetland there,
Yep.
Are the impacts to wetland F essentially impacts from creating that trail?
No, it's the lots.
Oh, the lots themselves are within the buffer, is that?
Correct.
Okay.
It's encroaching to the buffer.
Okay, so then buffer averaging is
Right.
being used. Okay, just wanted to be clear about that. Okay. Just trying to make sure I got questions. On the development agreement, do we have I assume this was signed and dated at some point, the information I have says this was authorized and approved in December 19th of 2016. The copy I have has no signatures, dates, anything. Can you attest for me that this was appropriately signed and dated by the parties in question?
Yes, I can.
Okay. And then just so I fully understand the background here. So because it's over a certain threshold of lot numbers, a development agreement was required.
Acres. It's by.
Oh, is
the
it
size
acres?
of the
Okay.
parcel.
Because of the size of the parcel. Is that normal, or is this because of the sub area it's in, or?
It is. I mean, the benefit is that if you have a large site, that you're able to maximize development, but then not impact critical areas.
Right.
And so, yes, a lot of sites that are greater than 2 acres utilize cluster housing. Also, because there is no minimum lot size, like
Right.
the district standards apply to the parcel, not the individual lots.
Right. Okay. So essentially, the rule is that if you want to use cluster housing, you need a development agreement
Yes.
that's been approved by the council.
Right, and that's only for
Okay.
5 acres or more.
Got
so
it.
if you're
I was gonna
3
say-
acres, you don't need a development agreement.
cluster housing is becoming more and more common. This is the only jurisdiction I'm aware of that requires a development agreement by the city council. That was the part I think that was throwing me off. Okay, so I think I understand that fully. Okay. As to SEPA review, and you did provide what we'll call a SEPA comment, I guess, from Ms. Marsh as Exhibit 21. But the clarification that in both your presentation today and in the staff report, there is reference to the comment period ending on the 27th of January. But if I go to Exhibit 5 in bold, very bold writing, it says that the appeal period for SEPA is actually from January 10th to January 31st of this month.
So the comment period has ended, but the SEPA appeal period is still open.
Okay, so the comment period is ended. I guess the challenge here in the city of Issaquah is where would that appeal go?
It would come here.
It would come to me, right?
Correct.
And under law, I'd be required to hold a consolidated hearing, would I not?
Yes, so the other option would be to do a continuation of this meeting.
So what I'm thinking, the best thing I would think would be, we'll go ahead and finish today, leave the record open until the close of business on the 31st. Assuming there are no SEPA appeals, nothing we have to worry about. If there is a SEPA appeal, unfortunately, we'd have to come back. But does that make sense to staff?
Yes.
Okay. Appeal period ends 1/31. Okay, a couple more details. The information I have notes that the city would be providing water and sewer. Are sewer and water availability certificates required, or are you confident, the city's confident it has adequate capacity for 20 additional single-family residences?
At this time, I'd like to call Denise.
Okay, happily. Thank you. Do you swear affirm to tell the truth in the testimony you give here today? And you are?
Denise Parolo, P as in Paul, I-R-O-L-O.
Thank you, Ms. Perlo. Please.
Water and sewer availability certificates are no longer provided by the city of Issaquah because we have water and sewer available everywhere. This site actually has connections at SR 900 and the entrance road. So yes, it's available. It can handle the 20 lots. The project also will be building the remainder of the water main and sewer into the site.
Okay, so the city is flush with capacity to the point that these certificates are no longer required, and for this particular proposal, you said that the sewer is the main, if you will, in SR 900,
Yes.
And then I believe with water, well, I know they have, I believe 2 vaults, is that right?
Stormwater vaults.
Yeah,
Yes.
and then that ultimately also goes into the municipal system? Sort of a
Actually,
separate question, but.
Yes. So water and sewer are available up, connections up on SR 900. I'm going to quote Stacy, our stormwater engineer. There are stormwater systems on site. All stormwater is handled on site in detention vaults and water quality vaults, which will discharge on site.
Okay, so.
Nothing into the public system, although there will be stormwater infiltration or dispersion into the buffers, which end up in the creek, but with all of the devices in advance of that.
Excellent. Okay, I think I understand that. And I don't know if you're the best person, I just wanted to ask about, so that under the development agreement, well, the staff report says under the development agreement, this should comply with the 2009 version of the King County Surface Water Design Manual. Is that still the version that
Yes,
the
with
city
the
uses?
addendum, does it mention?
Well, yes, sorry,
Yes.
with the 2011 addendum.
That's correct.
Okay, so that is the most current. not, if anyone knows, it doesn't impact my decision. I just didn't know if King County has a newer version of that they're using, or I don't know the answer. I know that many jurisdictions use Department of Ecology's manual, which is sort of 2014 updated in 2016. I just wasn't sure where King County was, but.
Okay. They're vested under the Stormwater Manual 2009 with the 2014 addendum.
Sure. And whether stormwater can vest is an issue under the law that I'm not going to get into, but if folks believe that's true and no one's appealed it, not my place to get into that issue. Okay, I think that covered the stormwater issues. Did you have anything further you wanted to add? Okay, thank you. Only a couple more for you, Ms. Porter. Schools, there is reference to, where am I looking? The Taos Middle School. Do we happen to know what other schools serve the site? And if so, is this probably likely a non-walking area, or we just don't know?
Elementary.
What was the?
Issaquah Valley Elementary.
Okay, Issaquah Valley Elementary and high school, do we happen to know?
Can you swear me in? So
I would happily swear
Yeah.
you
So I can
in.
stop
Swear
feeding
affirm
them
to tell the
information.
truth And the testimony you give here today.
I do.
And
I'm
you are.
Lucy Sloman, Land Development Manager.
Thank you, Ms. Fleming.
I'm working on the Taos Middle School, so I'm a little more familiar with that.
Sure.
Currently, the middle school is under construction, their land use permit is under review, and they're planning to be open in the fall of 2021. I believe what I've heard is that Issaquah Valley Elementary is serving this area, and Issaquah High School is also serving this area. But there are other, the Issaquah School District is also in the process of building other elementary and high schools. So I'm guessing by the time these houses come online, there will have been redistricting.
Mm-hmm.
So it's hard to say at this time exactly
Okay.
which schools will serve the plat.
Sure. I assume you can give me assurances that by the time little kids are living in the residences, we'll ensure there's a safe walking route to either the schools themselves or to a bus stop. Is that?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
The walking route, just so you know, is across this intersection along SR 900.
Right over there. Yeah. Okay, let's see. Well, I think. I believe that it has the questions that I had for the city, unless you or Ms. Lohman had anything further to add. Okay, thank you very much. At this point, why don't I turn it over to our applicant team? And do we have one person, a team of people? What's the plan here?
Just me.
Okay.
Yes,
Do you swear firm to tell the truth in the testimony you give here today?
I do.
And you are, sir?
Leo Suver.
Thank you, Mr. Suber. And I don't know if you had anything in particular prepared, or I can just ask you questions.
I only address one question you had on parking.
Sure.
Each of the homes in our development will have a minimum of a 2-car garage with 2 vehicles parking in a driveway, with the exception of our 2 affordable units, which will have 1 garage and 1 driveway.
All right, 2-car garage with space for 2 additional cars in the driveway. And then for the 2 affordable housing units, 1-car garage with 1 space, is that right?
Correct. And then on the east side of Tibbetts Creek, the larger lots will each have a minimum 3-car garage
Okay,
with additional driveway.
got it. And on the affordable housing, so this is something that the applicant, has said, rather than sort of deed these lots to the city to build themselves, you're going to go ahead and undertake that. I couldn't recall off the top of my head, and I was trying to look just now, but I guess how do we ensure that these are actual affordable housing units? Is there anything is there any mechanism in place?
I believe we're building to the arch standards.
Okay.
And they will be deed restricted, so the property will have a restrictive deed recorded on each of those lots, lot 1 and 2.
Okay. Oh, and those lots are already identified, is that right?
Well, they are for me, and yes, they are.
Okay, so you said that's lots 1 and 2.
Lot 1 and 2 will be our deed restricted lots.
Okay. And then, Mr. Sewer, on the open space, the city sort of gave 2 options. I think I understand, certainly why they have pointed this out. I mean, you have a lot of unbuildable portions of the site. Porter, is it possible to at least just put up the sort of basic site plan that you had up so I can visualize what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Thank
Do you want the open space where you can see the numbers?
Sure. Just kind of, yeah, which I think that works too. It's just helpful to have that visual in front of us. There we go. Okay, so they were essentially saying option 1, if we went with 15% of the net site area, and the net site area is only the buildable area minus.
Critical areas and private right-of-way.
Okay, versus the developable, a lot of syllables in that word, site area. I assume you're fine with the city's suggestion that we go with option 2.
Yes, we've had discussions.
Okay. I just wanted to ask, but.
Can I add just one thing?
Sure, Ms. Lemon, please.
Just that essentially the developable site area is the net site area after the development agreement established what areas had to be set aside.
Okay, so the developable site area.
That Ms. Porter is showing in option 2.
Right.
The 4.41 acres, that is all that's left for development based on the development agreement.
Okay, so essentially, the development agreement said 75% of the site will not be developed. What was, maybe I'm wrong, I think that's about right though, yeah?
Yeah, I'm following you.
Yeah, okay. 75% of this will be left sort of preserved. We know we want a trail. There's a couple other specifics that were involved. We'll let you do clustered on the remaining quarter of the site. And so I think I get what you're saying, Ms. Lemon, is you're saying this is an unusual situation to the extent that because the development agreement already carved out 75%, it would be extra onerous to then make the developer account for 15% of the 75% that was already set aside. So instead, the city's saying, if we thought about this the way things would normally be thought about, you would actually only look at the sort of net, and here, normally the net would have been 25% of the site. I think I get it. So under, case law and proportionality and all that analysis, the city has said, we're fine with in this instance, the developer using this option 2, which will be set aside of 15% of the 4.41 acres as opposed to of the 9.8 acres. I think I fully understand it, but thank you for the clarification.
Right.
Okay. very random question, Mr. Suber, if you happen to know the answer, but Exhibit 8 is your technical information report. Is September 9th, 2018, which is the stamp on the cover, is that the date of the report? I couldn't really find another date anywhere.
Yes, it is.
Okay, so that's not the engineer's registration, that's the actual date of the report.
That's the date of the report.
Cool,
right.
okay, great. 9/19/18. Accurate. And did you have an opportunity to review the comment that came in a little bit later from Ms. Marsh? And if so, did you have any response you wanted to provide?
I just received this minutes before the hearing, but I did have a brief conversation with staff, and I believe that we've addressed all of the issues that Ms. Marsh has raised, but there are a few things that she stated in there that I would question their accuracy, and I'll work with staff on that.
Okay.
I believe we've compensated for all of the buffer averaging for both our lot encroachment and our trail construction per city code.
Okay, so you're of the opinion that per the requirements of both the code and the critical areas report itself, buffer averaging where needed for the wetland buffers and the stream buffers is accurate. You've done
Yes.
as much as is required. Let's see.
And I don't believe Ms. Marsh saw the latest version, the final version of our preliminary plat that accounted for the trail buffer average.
Okay.
So,
Okay, that could also be the case. And then you had concerns over, I don't want to say the accuracy of her statements, but sort of her understanding of how the code works, or just maybe because she hadn't seen the newest version.
I think part of it, I don't believe she may have seen the latest version of that.
Okay.
And I think she may have made her own interpretation
Got
of
it.
city code.
Okay. Okay. Well, thank you. And then you heard our discussion on stormwater, but it sounds like you're actually complying with at least the sort of most recent version of what ecology would demand, which is you really try to infiltrate or address all stormwater on site. And that is what's happening here.
That's exactly what we've done, and part of our deviation requests are to reduce the amount of impervious generated from the site. And we've utilized dispersion wherever possible on the site as a method of low impact stormwater management, and we've done some infiltration as well.
Okay, so you are employing low-impact development techniques, which is the big catchphrase in all the newer stormwater manuals. And then it seemed as if there's also sort of hydrologic recharge with the wetlands. Is that right? There's some. Was that a yes? I'm sorry.
Yes.
Okay, yes. Okay.
And we've done our water quality treatment standard is sensitive lake option 4.
And that essentially meaning that there's assurances that the water that would enter the critical areas has been treated to the extent that it could go to a sensitive lake. Is that sort of an accurate way of describing what's going on there?
Yes.
Okay. Great. And then I think my final question just had to do with the bridge. And I believe the critical areas report had several suggestions about kind of what needs to happen down the road, and it seemed as if a little additional review will occur when we get further along the line. Is that your understanding of what's going to happen?
Yeah, we have actually not done the structural design of the bridge yet, awaiting the outcome of our preliminary plat. We have done significant engineering, though, and we're prepared to begin our bridge design and submit that for staff review.
Right, and the challenge is that we need to get the foundations in a way that you're not impacting the critical areas themselves, right? And
Correct, and
ensure enough clearance and, you know, and I just want to be clear, there is a green triangle on the top right. Is that also a critical area? Ms. Porter, can you go a little further to my right? I guess if this is accurate, it'd be east. Yeah, is that a critical area, or is that just a
Additional buffer that they're proposing to add.
Buffer.
Okay, that's the additional buffer that's being added, but then I assume what looks like a road actually would be elevated over that. Is that
correct. Yeah.
the right way to think about it? And then there's how many lots over on that side?
There are 4 lots.
Those are your 4 kind of big lots over there.
That's correct. It's
Okay.
consistent with the development agreement.
Got it. Okay. I think that makes sense. So you sort of think you have your way forward. You're going to wait till this process pans out. Then you'll submit the more detailed specifications for the bridge to the city for further review. And I assume the city has the option, if they so desire, to require an addendum to the critical areas report, if need be. I mean, is that a thing the city can do if they decide we want someone to look into this? Is that accurate? Okay. Okay, great.
And I'll also add, the
Sure.
bridge is currently laid out and intended to extend outside of the FEMA identified floodplain
Right.
for that region of the creek.
Right. Okay. Let me just make sure I've checked. Well, and we're still, again, the SEPA discussion at the beginning made sense. So
Yes.
essentially what would happen is we'll leave the record open for purposes of additional comments, or not comments, or past the comment period, really just to see if a SEPA appeal came in. And would that be the end of this week? I think Friday, right?
Yes.
It'd be Friday. So we would close the record officially end of business Friday, and assuming no appeal came in. If an appeal came in, that would be a whole process, and we'd be back here. But that all made sense to you?
Yes, it did.
Okay, and then the mitigation measures require, because theoretically you could appeal your own SEPA determination, so I just wanted to ask, do the SEPA mitigation measures and requirements make sense to the applicant, and you don't have any issue with complying with the SEPA measures?
We have no issues with it.
Sometimes we'll add those as additional conditions, just so that they're all in the same place, one document. People find it helpful. So I might end up adding those, but sounds like you would not have an issue with that. Okay. Okay. Well, I think then I have received the information that I need. Did you have anything on your side, Mr. Suber, that you wanted to add?
No, I think staff did a great job with the presentation.
They usually do. So, again, no one has come in. So we have no members of the public, it appears, interested in testifying on this particular proposal. So unless the city had anything further, we will go ahead and end the hearing on this particular application. Again, the record will be left open till close of business on Friday, at which point staff will let my office know whether or not any appeal has come in. Based on what I've seen, I suspect we're not going to have an appeal, but very thorough presentation by staff, by the applicant. So assuming no SEPA appeals come in, I don't foresee an issue with ultimately approving this preliminary plat. Again, with the caveat that we need to see what happens under SEPA. So.
And when did you say you need the PowerPoint presentation by?
Oh, whenever is convenient, but if you can just send that to us today, that would be great. By Friday at the latest, that way we don't want to keep the record open for no good reason. So, and make sure, if you can, that these guys get a copy as well, just so they have that. And they've already received a copy of Exhibit 21. So I think that's it. Thank you so much, folks.
Thanks.
We'll just take a quick break, and then we'll come back for the final plat.
Right, it was advertised at 11.
Oh, it was? Okay, I wasn't
So-
sure.
No, that's fair. I didn't know.